People who work for the super wealthy. What stuff have you seen? Had a client who purchased a newly built penthouse apartment and wanted a jacuzzi on the balcony. It would have meant a structural column was needed in the middle of the balcony below which the contractor who built the apartment block wouldn't go for as it would impact selling that apartment. Client buys the apartment below. Approves the column. Jacuzzi is installed. Then privately sells the apartment below. Voila, problem solved. The owner of my company had a customer pay off a giant debt by signing over a yacht to him. When he went to the marina to get the storage info transferred to his name and saw how much it cost to store the yacht there, he bought the marina. I did a male nanny job for a rich couple who wanted someone to care for their kids. The wife didn't want a female nanny and I was in college so it helped pay the bills. One day they asked, "Do you want to go to Hawaii?" Turns out the company that the husband was the COO of was doing an executive retreat in Hawaii. Instead of finding daycare in Hawaii for their kids, they thought it'd be easier to just pay for me to fly to Hawaii, care for the kids during the day, and then have my evenings or their family time free. So I went to Hawaii on their dime. Had my own hotel room. They paid me for my time and gave me a large stipend for my own food, entertainment. I ended up with pretty much every evening off so I got to spend it. During the day I brought their kids to the beach. We went hiking. And did some touristy running around. On top of that they gave me $5,000 in spending money in case any of the kids wanted anything. I had to show receipts. But when I tried to turn in the receipts the wife just said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's only a couple grand," and never verified how I'd spent some of that money. I couldn't tell if she just trusted me implicitly by that point or if she truly thought the amount was so small it didn't matter. They were a really nice family. Just very well off, which made just spending money on any problems the easiest answer. I actually got invited to the oldest daughter's high school graduation because she considered me a friend. The CEO of the company I worked for was the founder's son. Not an unintelligent guy for the most part. His dad made him start with the most basic jobs in the company and work his way through the different departments. Managerial staff was ordered, upon penalty of termination, not to treat him any differently than a new hire. So when he became CEO he wasn't a bad guy to with for. Now, this is a company of over 10. One night, I'm working overtime on the late shift and we get this call. "Hey, you guys, got electrician?" The guy is clearly drunk. We have no idea who it is or why he's calling our maintenance engineering group. We ask who he is and he informs us, lightheartedly, he wants someone to take a ride to his house and figure out why the internet isn't working. This is an hour drive away. I volunteer. I was bored off my nut anyway. I get to the house. Entry gate is smashed. Section of the white horse fencing is gone. Jaguar is stuck in the field. Here in the house is dude. Completely blasted. He's got a huge cut on his hairline. "Are you okay, boss?" "I'm fine." "Why?" he asks. Blood literally caked on his face. I accompany him to the bathroom and help him clean himself up. Wash off the gash and put some bandaging on it. Then I corrected the internet. Unplugged plug. As I'm walking out, he asks me to do a shot with him. I comment, worried about my job, that it might be a bad idea. He agrees and hands me the bottle. Take it home and do a shot later. Keep it. When I get back to work I look the stuff up. Never heard of it. It's a $1,500 bottle of scotch. The next day I'm at work early. About 11 in the morning he comes walking up. We're not going to be talking about last night?" I tell him it's all good. Awesome. A little bit later I get an envelope. There's a check attached for emergency tech support, $5. Worked in recruitment finding crew for super yachts many years ago. Put forward a candidate for a chief engineer on a very well-known yacht owned by a very well-known individual. Was the perfect fit of knowledge and experience, and the guy was super friendly and nice as well. They turned him down because he wears glasses and the owner doesn't want anyone with disabilities working on board. Edit. I didn't expect this to get so much attention. To answer a few things that keep popping up. Why didn't I tell the candidate so he could sue them? Is that even legal? I had signed various NDAs so I would have been destroyed. I was told this over the phone so there was no proof. They have a whole company of lawyers. If the candidate did decide to sue he would have failed. The yacht industry is small. Especially at the top end. It would have been the end of both of our careers. Neither of us would have worked in the industry again. They were registered under a different country's flag, so would have made it even more difficult. They could have paid for LASIK? This was over a decade ago. Maybe 2. Yes, it was probably still available, but why the hell would they? It was one of the top jobs in the industry at the time, and they could have anyone they wanted. Why waste the money when they can get someone else that has the right knowledge, experience, and fits their requirements? Why don't I name them? Lol fuck no. Even though it was a very long time ago and I have nothing to do with the industry anymore, I do not want to fuck with these people. Did appliance repair. One lady had a 10 by 12 walk-in wine cooler. Floor to ceiling stocked with wine. In her living room. Another person's house was made of imported stone and had a library the size of 2-car garage. My favorite was an old lady who just had nice stuff. She took care of what she had. Every time I went she gave me $40 for a nice beer with your lady. I would always refuse, but she insisted and was basically the typical granny everyone would want. Not the craziest thing, but wild to me. I was working for a kind of well-off family during a summer. I went inside to get a drink and the mom was cleaning the kitchen, putting things away and such. She picks up a MacBook and says to me, "Hey, do you want this? No one uses it, got a brand new MacBook for college." Redid a lady's shower one time during the middle of a nasty divorce. The shower was 6 feet x 10, with the entire ceiling covered in shower heads. Since he was off with half the office, I figured I'd get the other half all in here. Lady was a baller, minus $500 tip for everyone who worked on that bathroom because it was her ex's money. Edit. We redid the glass to her shower when I was at a glass shop. How the actual plumbing and stuff worked is beyond me. My job was to bring in giant panes of glass, attach them to the wall, floors, waterproof the seals, and dip. With how large her house was and the other 2, smaller, houses that were attached, I'm sure she had enough money to throw at someone to solve those plumbing problems. Their kids are all kinds of screwed up. Turns out money can't replace an emotionally available parent. Their kids, all young 20s, never shut the door when using the bathroom. Plenty times while cleaning the house I'd walk past the bathroom and see one of their daughters on the can. They'd often wave or say hi. Fucking odd. I was the project manager for a mansion build for one of the founders of a major health insurance company here in the US. This guy was one of, if not the best billionaire I've ever worked for. He showed up nearly every day in shorts and flip-flops and would treat all of us like equals. This was around the time that President Obama was about to put out Obamacare. I was in a meeting with the owner and President Obama called him on his cell to discuss the plan. He, the owner, tells us to hold on. The president is calling. To which someone jokingly made a comment about, thinking he was joking. The owner asks Obama to say hi to the team. And he did. It was surreal to be at the table with him when the call came through. And an experience I will never forget. Edit. He was a founder but sold his shares, prior to Obama becoming president, and was in retirement. Working on passion projects. Not an active member of the company. I'm not going to disclose his name for NDA purposes. I will say that his story is pretty all-American. Did not come from money. Served in Vietnam and started out as an insurance salesman. Built his own company up from that. Never work for millionaires. They're just trying to prove something. Work for billionaires. They know what they want and will just pay what it costs to get it right. A caretaker getting paid 6 American figures for keeping up a multi-million-dollar house that gets used 2 weeks a year. My bro worked on a super yacht. Quit the day he saw a 14-year-old take a massive shit on the deck and tell him to clean it up. I briefly cleaned houses one summer and these houses were insane. Some had elevators. Some had stalls in their master bathroom. Edit. Corrected from bedroom. One had a literal cave manufactured in the bathroom. With showerheads all throughout it. You could walk from one end and come out the other side of the bathroom, split by a massive hot tub. What struck me as odd, in almost every house, was the sense of disuse. They had grand pianos covered in dust. Expensive lamps and throw pillows with the tags still on them. Sprawling playrooms with every toy any child could want. Totally devoid of playing children. The weirdest house I cleaned though. Wasn't huge and it wasn't gorgeous. It was pretty normal on the outside. But inside, The entire house was filled with piles of clothes. Everywhere. I pulled aside my fellow cleaner and asked, with all sincerity, how to clean this house. She told me to go around the piles as best you can. They had a mountain of clothes in the living room. Like something out of a cartoon. Every couch had stacks of brand new clothes with tags on them. They were the only folded clothes anywhere. In the bedroom it was the same. Smaller piles in every corner. Couldn't fully open or close doors around them. The kids' bathroom didn't even have a shower curtain. Best guess after cleaning that house as best we could is that they don't wash clothes. I think they just buy more and discard the dirty clothes into the piles. I think about that house a lot and wonder if they ever got their shit together. Edit to add. It was like metal bathroom stall cubicles. And the elevators and stalls did not seem related to accessibility. My apologies for any misunderstanding. I moved the guy that created eBay. He had Aretha Franklin's grand piano, played it, and Elvis Presley's coat, didn't wear it. I worked on a billionaire's home installing his custom pool. He ordered a custom iridescent tile. For the whole pool it cost $440 KUSD for material alone and another $400,000 to install it. We informed him that it was a special order and couldn't be changed once ordered. He approved. We installed it. Walks out. It looks amazing, all the people working on it thought so, says he doesn't like it, tear it out and replace it. All told he blew like $4 million on his pool tile before he got done. Fucker didn't bat an eye. Edit. Pool pictures of the pool since everyone was asking. Edit 2. Also worked on a house in that same area that had a $250,000 fish tank. Can't share pictures of that cause it was in someone's house but still. Edit 3. For scale. The boat in the pictures behind the pool is 90 feet long. Years ago I used to work carpentry mainly doing sunrooms. One of our clients was a brain surgeon who was married to a lawyer and they subsequently had a massive house on a large property. Their son was also some type of neuroscientist and with his parents' permission had yet another massive house built on this same property. Problem is, city ordinances prohibit 2 separate livable dwellings on the same property. Mind you, these houses were about a quarter-mile away from each other. So to comply with the ordinances, they build a fucking wall between the houses. And this isn't just some dinky picket fence type of wall. It's a massive medieval-style wall that has round towers with merlins and crenels. A gym midway through. And a massive $750,000 plus all-glass sunroom, all the while being wide enough to have room for a walking path and a road for golf carts. Inside the wall, the city ordinance said only 1 livable dwelling can be on their property. So they just made a massive hallway between their houses. Edit. I was able to find the video I took from years ago on my computer when we were on the job site scouting it out. My memory wasn't exactly correct, but this gives you a good look at what it looked like. The steel structure you see near the end is where the sunroom was going to go. All we were providing was the glass. I had a client gamble away $220,000 in one night. My brother-in-law builds custom homes in the redneck Riviera belt of Florida. One day, he called me to come over to this $15 million beach house he was doing a complete remodel of. He was the original builder. He asked me to bring my truck and trailer. I show up, and he walks me through all 4 floors. He then says, "The owners have removed all the stuff they want to keep. She has told me to dispose of everything as I see fit. Get what you want. Furniture, appliances, outdoor furniture, rugs, lamps, artwork, you name it. I don't know the value of everything I took home with me that day. But it was the highest end stuff I've ever seen. 4 floors of it. And I only got 1 trailer load because I simply couldn't fit anything else in my house. I likely had over $20,000 worth of furniture and appliances on that trailer. I did carpentry for a summer to save up money for school. We would go to huge mansions and amazing houses that needed work done. Usually easy stuff. Decorative things, so most times it would be 1 to 2 days of work. Most times we would work, the family would be home. It's not a problem. Very normal. Once a family had kids and they watched a TikTok video on what poor people eat, and it was about how to cook things like 10-cent ramen and bread with sausages to make hot dogs. They laughed and thought it was fun, so made the food to try in the kitchen. They hated it all. This was the food I grew up eating my whole life. That packet of ramen was the same as the dinner waiting for me at home. My friend is a mechanic. A wealthy, fat, famous and all-round unlikable entrepreneur came into his work one day and took a liking to his coworker. He asked my friend's coworker to come and work for him maintaining his car collection. It was really good pay and he got to work on some cool cars, so he thought, why not? His days were spent working on old, rare sports cars on his sprawling property, but every now and again he'd get sent to Europe or the United States to check out cars said entrepreneur was interested buying. He'd get sent to auctions all the time and ring up said entrepreneur while it was happening so he could bid on the car on his behalf. Edit. Not Jay Leno. If you can figure out the country I'm in, you'll 100% know who it is. Not Clarkson either. Yep. It was Clive. Bartending at a fancy party in a very wealthy older couple's house where these people had art on display they had bought from museums. I was working in a room where 3 walls were glass and you could see this beautiful manicured garden with sculptures. When the sun started to set, these big floppy-eared white bunnies started to appear and frolic around the yard. I asked someone who worked in the house about the rabbits. The rich people bought them as a garden feature. Every once in a while they had to cull the rabbit population. The rabbits were decorations. This was also the night when I was making an older man a drink and he decided to ask me, so, what are the poor people doing tonight? I've done side IT work for various CEOs dozens of times over the years and there's always common threads. It's always been male CEOs. And they genuinely seem relieved to have someone in their house that isn't trying to negotiate or weasel something from them. They'll sit and talk with me. Ask my career plans. How I got into the field. That kind of thing. The wives of said CEOs are all eerily similar. Lots of makeup. Very strong opinions. Very cold. And very standoffish. The garage always has at least one classic car. One sports car. And one car lift. There is always a golf cart on the property. The kids' rooms are always a mess. One guy was in an 18-plus room mansion and his teen son had a mattress on the floor with clothes piled up everywhere. I had to hook up some wiring in there and it smelled like his foot was in my face. If there's a dog or cat in the house, it's the most well-groomed animal you've ever seen. They always have a van service to come out once a week or so for grooming. Any mess will be blamed on the cleaning lady. She either hasn't come or missed something, even though I didn't notice a mess in the first place. They tend to have the best of everything from stores, vendors you don't normally see. One CEO had a custom German sound system installed in his game room, which featured a bar, a snack bar, theater seating, cafe tables, and 2 fridges. The interface on his entertainment system was also custom made and all the TVs in the house used the same interface. I've seen a glimpse of very sexy lingerie, leather straps, and chains hanging in closets. Freaky stuff happens. I'll always get an invite to go on a boat ride, plane ride, golf trip, whatever they're into. These invites aren't real. I think they do it to remind you they have toys. That's all I can think of for now. AMA might jog my memory. I am a dentist and used to own a dental office in an extremely wealthy area. I feel like really rich people come in 2 flavors. Very humble and generous or just 100% a-hole. Most are the a-hole. Not much in the middle. True wealthy people care a lot about time. Not money. If there was any hiccup in a procedure or something wasn't correct they would flip out. 99% of the issues they would flip out about I could fix, but that meant they had to make another dentist appointment which wasted their time. I hated working on rich people. Best day of my life is when I sold that dental office. I worked at a house in which both father and mother were so busy making money in order to give their children a better quality of life that the eldest son who was at my school joined a gang. That guy didn't lack money, but he lacked empathy. Love for other people. Respect towards others. Control of emotions. I used to clean their super yachts, many years ago. They are drug addicts. So many drugs. Back then I was young and happily consumed their leftovers. I'll change a few details to protect the innocent. But I used to give guitar lessons in a very rich area and the company I worked for had a lot of celebrity and or just ridiculously rich clients. I saw in-home rivers, elevators, waterfalls, live-in chefs, 40-car garages, fully automated mansions that could change the season, indoors, etc. The thing that stood out most to me was the boredom of humanity. Like one guy the first became friends with had 17 off-road vehicles. A house bigger than his Laker star neighbor, and his Chicago Bull star neighbor for that matter. And traveled to different extreme game competitions every weekend. But when I came over for the lesson, he just wanted to talk about Nirvana. Watch TV. Learn Pearl Jam bass riffs. And go to shows. The second thing that stood out to me was that the ratio of cool people to screwed up people seemed relatively the same between the super rich and the normies. Like there was one guy who wanted lessons with his very young son to connect with him. But only lasted 3 minutes every lesson before he had to take an important call or run off to an emergency board meeting. You could see the kid was in a giant playground of a mansion but was just crushed. However, I also gave lessons to a family where the parents were two high-powered lawyers, one of whom is now running for Congress, and they were absolutely amazing to those kids. Always attentive. Would drop calls from celeb clients to fix a tricycle wheel. Would lovingly enforce homework rules. Etc. Great people. That was about the same ratio amongst my middle-class clients and amongst my poor clients. The last thing that stood out as the one really obvious advantage to being rich was the people's physical appearance. By and large, they were almost all very good-looking people at any age. And most without surgery. It's actually kind of incredible what the body can do when you're able to always feed it healthy foods, live in chefs. Exercise whenever you want in a variety of ways with or without leaving your home, in mansion gyms. Indoor-outdoor multi-tiered waterfall pools. Week-long skiing trips. Personal trainers. Etc. And the lack of daily, grinding mental stress. I'm not saying they didn't have stress or they didn't work hard. But most did not have that existential stress about what might happen if they got fired because they didn't work the extra Saturday. Or the stress of a boss breathing down your neck when you're at a dead-end job just hoping for a living wage. There is something to be said for the mental benefit of hope and joy and inner calm, and unfortunately, money does help with those things. So I did see a large health benefit to people with loads of money also. And lastly, I don't believe any of these people were self-made. This type of wealth is not just working hard and climbing the corporate ladder using nothing but your bootstraps. This type of money is generational wealth with decades-long investment accounts from things set up by ancestors. I'm not saying they haven't worked hard. But turning $100 into $1,000 and turning $100 into $110 are two very different things, and the latter is inarguably easier from both a percentage and opportunity standpoint. I did pest control for the CEO of a pretty big candy company. Dude had cases and cases of gummy bears in his basement. Like enough to fill a small U-Haul. I used to work at a members-only golf country club. There were members who had been actors, athletes, race car drivers, former CEO of Google. Some major money and egos going on. There was one family that had 3 teenage kids. 2 girls and a boy. The mom and the girls were very attractive and knew it. They always looked amazing and had overly entitled attitudes to match. They were fancy. Well, the lady who washed the linens for the county club also did house cleaning for some members. This family was one of them. She said their multi-million-dollar home was a disaster filth zone. They basically did no housework in between having the cleaning lady there. Dishes piled with dried food that smelled. Dirty clothes thrown everywhere. Piles of crap all over. Sticky floors. Dog poop left on the floor. But the nastiest part was the bathrooms. She said they wouldn't empty their bathroom trashes and the ladies of the house would throw their used tampons on top of overflowing trash, so she had to pick up their used women's products thrown on the floor, not even wrapped in paper. So these fancy bitches would walk around the club like they were so superior and look down on everyone, then would go home and act like wild apes throwing their trash and period products on the ground. The thought of being so out of touch that you decide it is beneath you to even be sanitary BC, you can just pay someone to do that for you, is just beyond insanity. Had a client come into our 3D printing office. His attention was immediately caught by a large industrial 3D printer in our showroom. Pulled out a credit card and bought a $250,000 machine on the spot. Best part was when we installed the machine at his facility. First thing he wanted to print was a meter-tall penis. Few weeks after the install we got a photo of him standing next to the meter penis. Money well spent. What struck me the most is how extremely picky they are. And how angry they get at anything that isn't exactly how they want it. Because I'm noticing myself drift towards that. Even though I'm nowhere near wealthy. It makes me question what I feel entitled to. Everything else, I categorize as alien behavior that I could never understand. This is the only one where I see a bit of myself. Worked for the son of the CEO of Rolls-Royce America. He would routinely charge the company when he went to the brothels. And his wife was the company accountant. Radiant heated driveways to melt snow. A turntable to rotate their car so they didn't have to back out of their driveway. Lifts in the garage so they can park cars underneath each other. I set up a party for a family out in the Hamptons that bought the house next door just to level it and set up a giant temporary party tent on the plot. Wild shit. My sister is a butler for a super wealthy family. She told me a couple crazy stories. The family once got this super expensive rare breed cat, and a few months later the wife tells my sister she can feel the cat isn't quite happy in their house, so she asks her to take their private jet to drop the cat off in their mansion on Lake Como, Italy, so it could spend a holiday in the sun. That same woman would then sometimes berate my sister for buying soap and plastic dispensers instead of just soap bars because it's bad for our planet. They bought this insanely huge super luxurious cabin in one of the most expensive ski stations in Switzerland. They realized the cabin, more like a mansion really, right next to theirs was for sale, and then bought that one as well just so they wouldn't have close neighbors. Wife as PA for wealthy and incredibly powerful man. Self-made. Humble. Uncomfortable in small social gatherings. But a lion in a business setting. Understated houses. What I found most interesting is the guy would think nothing of dropping 5 figures on jewelry or other luxury items. But come the end of the day, Friday, that guy is in the kitchen at the office taking home all the leftover bagels from the morning. I often do work for the wives of wealthy professionals. The thing that has always stood out to me is that if I tell them that something they want isn't doable, they respond with literal confusion. It isn't anger. It's confusion. They are so unaccustomed to not being given exactly what they want that it's as if they don't understand what is happening when they are told they can't have something. I work as a maid. Not the most ideal job, but it pays well. Children are usually neglected because money can't replace a parent that loves you. Their kids are usually pretty spoiled too. Most kids have the whole Apple ecosystem. Also, what is it with rich children wanting to be from the hood? Not me. A friend. Old rich guy has no kids, so he's like a son to him. Mansion. Boats. All given. When the old man kicks the bucket soon. Millions inherited. Fuck. If most didn't have people clean for them, they'd be lost. Don't go to a rich relative or friend's house and feel like shit. They ain't cleaning that bitch themselves. I did personal shopping for a pop star for about 7 months before they moved out of my area. The main thing I witnessed was inconsistency. Day 1. Go find me this exact rug and find some picture frames that would complement this room. Great. I put in a little extra footwork and found that rug discounted. Well, they didn't want it discounted when they can afford full price. Day 2. While they were out the other day, they saw this fantastic sculpture at a home goods store. Can I find it? Hey, turns out I can. No problem. Wait, but if I found that rug from yesterday discounted, why couldn't I put in the time to find this discounted? NDA runs out in 2030. But otherwise I have nothing but praise. They were a joy to work with. It was just very much never knowing what would strike their fancy and when. Then not knowing if I should go the extra mile to save money or find a newer model. Or just get paid for a full day's work for walking about a mile to bed, bath, and beyond. I worked for an owner of a large construction company. Back when we had the recession in around 2008. I saw him lay off workers and stop pay rises. At the same time of ordering in a brand new Rolls-Royce for himself. His money, but didn't sit right with me. Used to work for a real estate development company. The boss was the richest guy in town. The second biggest office was given to his wife, who did nothing. Her office was entirely bright pink. They put in a private bathroom just for her. Her parking space was double wide because she couldn't park straight, and she used employees to run all her personal errands. It was very annoying. But we were told we had to do everything she said. I remember she once asked me to print out a website for her. I did a catering job years ago for John Paul DeJoria. Patron Tequila and Paul Mitchell. And his house was awesome. Riverside, Texas Hill Country. Beautiful place. We were packing up at the end of the night and the security guard came by and said stay away from the windows, we are locking up. We said okay, and about 5 minutes later these metal drop-down armor plates came out of the roof, it seemed, and covered each window and door. Thick metal plating armor. I do high-end florals in very rich area. See tons of obscene shows of wealth all the time. The amount of money some of these people spend of flowers alone is unfathomable. The one that I always come back to is a client who we were decorating their house for Christmas. And as I was hanging garland around their 6-car garage, a separate garage than the one connected to the house. I look in to see each of the 6 spots has a car elevator and is 3 cars deep. So there were 18 of the same exact $350,000 plus car. Why would anyone need 18 of the same exact car? Let alone one that expensive. $300 baby cashmere sweater that will fit for 6 months and probably get thrown up on. I was a trainee sailing on a container ship going from Dubai to Tokyo and back, via all the big ports. One day the route was changed and now we would go from Singapore to LA. Because this change wasn't planned, we, the 2 trainees, didn't have visas for the US. Meaning we couldn't leave the boat once we docked. For us it was not a problem. We'd only be there for 2/3 days at most. The company decided we should get the visas. They flew us from Hong Kong to our home countries. Got us a 10-year work permit for the US in a matter of days. And then flew us back to Dubai to join the ship. I've never seen money thrown around like that for little to no reason. It was crazy. As a housekeeper. Sex dungeon. Weird art. Lots of casual nudity. Imagine you have infinite money and Sims and are building a house. Also, you have already traveled a bunch and been to every theme park and fancy restaurant and spa. You start really having fetish stuff at home. There is so much sex stuff that it's not even weird to me anymore. Overall weirdest top 3. 3. Brass copies of the homeowner's genitals. 2. A room dedicated to fascism and sexual kinks. 1. Body parts removed encased in plastic from surgery. Bodyguarded someone filthy rich with next to no class whatsoever. He bought a very sought-after rare classic car from a renowned Italian carmaker. Had the roof taken off. Painted it a ridiculous pink sparkle color and put it on the roof of one of his most central buildings in the middle of a large European city. The Italian carmaker offered to buy the car, presumably because they were absolutely disgusted with what he'd done to the car and didn't want the abomination to get further exposure as they felt it damaged their brand tremendously. He sold it to them. Was then banned from ever purchasing factory new models from that brand ever again globally. I work as a private chef. And the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area. For mostly high net worth families. VCs. CEOs. Owners of sports teams. Shit like that. Here's what I've seen. They don't raise their kids. Every single family has house staff. Sometimes one for each child. They are not well adjusted. All attend private school. Have drivers. And don't understand how anything works. I had to explain what public school is to a kid once. They shop differently than we do. When we go to the store we buy what we need. A 12-pack of seltzer. Only the paper towels or snacks we need. These families order everything and in bulk. It's not one 12-pack of Spindrift. It's whole cases. And everything is ordered and delivered. I've been to homes with floor-to-ceiling cabinets of just beverages. They do not take the subway or public transportation. Ever. A room dedicated only to silverware and another just for servings platters. The amount of money spent weekly on fresh flowers is obscene. They are beautiful. But damn. A dining room table that cost $250,000. Elon Musk, not by choice. He just happened to be at a dinner I was working. They spend more money on kitchens they'll never use that most people will ever spend on a vehicle. I've worked on $20,000 plus ranges in private homes. You can find a picture of one in my post history. The homes. I worked for a family during the summer of last year that has at least $75 mil across 3 properties alone. It's absolutely wild. They will often try to undercut you. Only a few times have I had a billionaire look at my rate and not try to get me to take less. I've been standing in a $40 mil Hamptons home listening to a woman try to negotiate me down. They eat way simpler than you could imagine. I've written extensive fine dining menus for private dinners only to be asked for something as simple as steak, smashed potatoes, and broccoli rabe. No shit. This is a standing dish for a client of mine. So fucking simple. They will give you all expenses paid trips just so they don't have to worry about cooking their own meals. Aspen, Cabo, Hamptons, Jackson Hole. It doesn't matter. They don't want to cook. I might be missing a few things. But this is just off the top of my head. I work with some very wealthy people. I work in nonprofit. Wealthy people who claim to donate hundreds of thousands of dollars a year or even millions of dollars a year do so in deceptive ways. For example, this very rich person in a large city in the USA has a big yacht. He decides that if he would rent his yacht to someone, he would charge $5,000 per hour. No sane person would ever actually pay him $5,000 per hour for his stupid yacht. So, he will rent his yacht to a non-profit organization for 5 hours at a total of $25. So that they can host an event on his yacht. He will then write up an invoice and gift that 5 hours, $25. To that non-profit organization. He can then take that $25 and get a write-off on his taxes. This same guy will hang out at the non-profit organization's party and drink their wine, eat their catered food, and he will get someone to captain the ship for free by telling the guy, hey, it's for a non-profit, don't you want to help them? $25. Free dinner, free booze, and a big round of applause for his generosity. He can also avoid an annual tax fee from that city by donating boat time to politicians of that city. Want to host your city worker party on my boat? No problem. Write me a law that says the annual boat docking tax for my huge yacht is waived if I donate X hours a year of yacht time to your city workers or non-profit organizations. These laws are slipped into omnibus packages and they even look good at first glance. The politician can say, see? We make the rich pay their fair share in our city, while the yacht owner is taking that check right to the bank. They do this for yachts, property, jets, etc. Then they can go around saying they donate so much money to all these non-profits. They can charge rates nobody in their right mind would ever pay because the IRS will pay them on tax credits. And none of this is illegal. You weren't allowed to hand him or his family things that have already been opened or used. That bottle of sunscreen that was only used once. Don't even think about it. Everything has to be new. There was a desk that had bottles and bottles of just sunscreen that they only used once and never again. The interesting thing was this guy owned an eco-resort. I coached sailing to the child of a CEO from one of the biggest US service industry conglomerates. When his child did well, he would take me out to dinner sometimes with his buddies. The many stories they each told of cheating on their wives, drug taking, tax evasion and general scumbaggery genuinely shocked me, especially when I had a close relationship with some of his children. Have a buddy that owns a window cleaning business. Came out to an estate to bid on the job. Inside and out for the entire property. Owner decided to just do half. And it was over $13,000 in 2 days for a large crew to complete. When my friend cashed the check, he noticed the memo. Windows. House number 5. I interned a long time ago where we had to clear every single check or credit card charge with a guy's parent because he got conned into joining a cult and the leader kept getting him to piss away his trust fund. Once there were enough checks and balances in place, he got kicked out of the cult for not paying up anymore. I felt bad for the guy. He was actually pretty nice, but his parents just pawned him off on the help while they traveled, and he was an easy mark because the cult made him feel loved. It's crazy how many try to get out of paying for things. Makes you wonder if that's how they got wealthy in the first place. But as for material things I've seen, I worked on a house that had a huge swimming pool with a 1/3 mile long lazy river. He also had a movie theater that sat about 20 and a $60 aquarium in his basement, private bar. An old boss did extremely well and sold off the lion's share of his ownership but wanted to stay involved in the company anyway. So he'd drive his absurd supercar to the office and just hang out. One day he came into the office and it was set up in such a way that the executive offices were in a little 2x2 office glass pod in the middle, with curtains for privacy if needed, and our rows were arrayed around them. He sat in his little glass office all day and cleaned his handguns. I'll say this though. He wasn't a bad dude. We may not have seen eye to eye on politics, but if you worked for the company he knew your name and would hang around and chat. Super generous around the holidays with time off and the big holiday party, door prizes, stuff of that nature. The company went way downhill when he finally let go of the reins completely. Worked for a 3-person dog walking, doggy daycare company. Ended up getting some very wealthy clients. They traveled for fun so often my boss and I had their dog for more days out of the year than they did. It was to the point that people at my favorite dog park thought he was my dog. As you can imagine, the dog misbehaved a fair amount. But he was also sweet. The same couple also employed a pool guy. I helped him out one day when their pool cover got stuck and he offered to pay me cash next time he came by. He asked where he could leave an envelope and I told him just to leave it on the counter inside. He looked at me incredulously and said, "Do you really think they let me in their house?" I never knew what to think of that lol. He seemed like a professional guy. And had started working for them just a few months after me. Getting a chartered jet stocked with lobster and other expensive food only to show up late with McDonald's. Worked as one of 4 full-time groundskeepers at a large estate. 46 acres of lawn to mow twice a week. 2 clay tennis courts. 3 pools. 1 for the main house and 1 for each of the 2 guest houses. 100+ acre private lake with boathouse. No clue how big the whole estate was including the woods. Personal favorite was the 3-mile personal racetrack. But what really blew my mind was that he hosted his niece's wedding one summer. Paid $350,000 to have this massive willow tree trucked in and planted by the lake for wedding photos. Only to pay another $50,000 to have it removed and the landscaping returned to its original state after the wedding because he did not like the look of it. Grew up with the children of a very famous musician. Think someone who has dozens of songs you'd recognize immediately. Their house had 4 stories and 3 elevators. The kids' room, identical twins, was 2 stories itself and bigger than my family's nice 2-story home with a pool. Every toy you could imagine. Dirt bike track. Baseball field. One of the twins was very kind and I really liked him. The other had a bit of a chip on his shoulder and his personality would change a lot. But he wasn't a bad guy, at least when I knew him. I believe the nice one joined the military for a big, then when he got out joined helping to support the business. Not sure what happened to the other. His parents were very kind. My dad about had a heart attack when he showed up at our house to drop me off one day. He recognized him immediately. Funny enough, they just wanted to be normal. We all wanted to go to their house, but they really just wanted to come hang out with us and not be treated differently. Didn't understand it at the time, but definitely do now. Hope they are all doing alright. I babysat for an old money family as a teenager. Massive house that had passageways and walls that the kids would use to play hide and seek. Basement had a passageway to a weird underground cave, cellar that had been bricked off for decades. One day the dad, who was the coolest dude I've ever met, asked if I wanted to earn an extra $200. I sat sure, and he wants me to help him knock down this brick wall because after 40 years he can't stand it and has to know what's behind it. We go down and knock this wall out only to find that in the late 1800s his family had slaves and instead of setting them free when slavery was abolished they put these 4 poor women in a good cellar and walled them in. The smell when that wall CSME down was awful, and even 20 years later we have no idea what their names were or anything other than they were women. They buried them in the old family cemetery at the back of the property. Right next to the relatives that walled them in to die. I still visit the family. As I'm great friends with the older kids. And always go back and out flowers on those women's graves. They have headstones that simply say in memoriam since we don't actually know their names. I knew a DJ working for the super wealthy. Not a famous DJ, however the guy was good and low-key. The one thing that always stood out for me were the orgies he played for. He always told me after dark you would not believe the people fucking and swapping wives. And drugs. So many drugs. Not me. But my cousin teaches English to foreign students in London. Sometimes they're kids. She was once asked to go to a wealthy Arab's home to help their kids learn English. The house was stunning. The usual opulence. But the liquid hand soap was watered down. Despite being incredibly rich, they skimped on basic items like soap. Lou Roll, etc. It was all cheap brands. Or, as I said, watered down. I did a clerical job for very rich man. And mostly worked at his office. But once I was at his home for some business reason. And heard him in the background telling family members to get fake passports and cash together and get ready to flee the country. Apparently he had been engaged in some sort of illegal business activity. The next day I went to work. The office was closed and padlocked. I never did find out if he outran the law or not. I have a friend who owns his own business. He was in this house one time doing some work. And as he passed a room, he saw a Gibson Les Paul leaned up in the corner. He mentioned it to the owner of the home. Just making a statement. "Hey, I saw that Les Paul up there. Do you play?" The owner basically said that they had purchased the guitar for their son when he was in high school. But he had since gone off to college and the guitar probably hadn't been touched by anyone except their maid in over 5 years. My buddy was like, "Cool. Well, that's a pretty nice guitar. It's a shame it doesn't get played more often," and then went back to working. That was it. No more conversation. As he was walking out after finishing the job, the owner came down with the guitar in his hand and asked my buddy if he wanted it. He tried to say no, but the person wouldn't take no for an answer. And that is how my buddy got a $10,000 Gibson Les Paul for free. I worked on a school project with a girl whose family net worth is more than $9 billion. They have a consumer products company that is a household name everyone would recognize. And it is family run. 2 stories. First, at dinner one night, she made an offhand comment. "Growing up, my parents would tell me to eat all the food on my plate." And I thought, yeah, me too. Until she continued. "Because when I'm running the family business, it will offend our overseas suppliers if we don't eat all the food they serve." Second, I was writing a fluff article for the school newspaper about an event. It was fun. Many people including John Park, Jose Gonzalez, and Mary Jones all attended. I gave them each an FYI before submitting. She replied immediately very agitated and said I couldn't include her. I thought she misunderstood and said it would only show up buried at the back. She replied, "You don't understand. If my name shows up in the paper at all, I will get angry calls from my whole family, parents, aunts, uncles, everyone." I don't know why I love this story, but I always bring it up to show how the real wealthy treat money. My father was the private chef for a billionaire. He's famous-ish, and would travel with him on his private jet. Make him anything he wanted, etc. He was a very, very genuine man, the billionaire, and was very good to my father and us as his family. That being said, one story always stood out. He wanted a smoothie. They had just arrived at his house X in beautiful location Y, and my dad hadn't been in that kitchen in quite a while. He couldn't find the blender and was told to go out and buy one, high-end of course, and make a smoothie. He does this. Makes smoothie. Boss is happy. And while cleaning found 10 blenders in obscure spots, likely done by the cleaning crew. It just to me puts things in perspective at a real level. This man had thousands of dollars worth of pristine high-end blenders I probably wouldn't even entertain buying because it'd be too much for me to justify for a blender. And could care less. I don't know, but to me it was a very real example of wealth at a human level, if that makes sense. My friend is an aeronautical engineer. Worked for some Saudi family's airport in the US. Got sent all over the world to work on and retrieve private jets. Insane. He quit to be closer to his wife and newborn kid. The richest man I've ever met, a multi-billionaire who controls hundreds of billions more in assets, is also one of the kindest and most gracious individuals I've encountered. Treated everyone around him with respect and seemed genuinely interested in our work and families. His kids are super successful in their own rights too. So yeah, sorry to bust the stereotypes. Edit. Since this got some unexpected upvotes. Here's some bonus smiley face. The individual I'm talking about is not only far more wealthy than some of the people being talked about here. He's also a member of the Bilderberg Group, so you can indulge in all your favorite globalist conspiracy theories. $40,000 per year on sports coaching and travel. Each. For 2 kids. It was a better option than having them get into drugs or blow money in other destructive ways. When the oldest kid turned 22, he got mad at his mom and yelled at her, "All I know about is." She said, "I know. But you don't have a cocaine addiction and 3 pregnant strippers like your Uncle Mark. Once when I told my boss that we have completed the work well before time. He removed his expensive watch and gave it to me and said good job. My aunt used to clean rich people's houses. I helped her once and I saw a tanning bed in the loft bedroom of a little girl, 12 or so years old. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.